Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you my October TBR. So, if you saw my September TBR, I kind of lost my mind a little bit. I was definitely feeling the ARC panic. This is a big period for new releases for the year, and I kind of lost it, and I put every book that I had for the second half of the year that I've been sent by publishers. I thought there were 34. I think there were 36 books on that TBR. Spoiler alert, I did not read 36 books in the month of September, although I still have a couple of days, so maybe. But I wanted to give myself a little bit of a break. There are some books that are carrying over that are coming out soon, or that I have obligations for, say, blog tours. I also have a reread, which is very rare for me, and I have some stuff that I may finish this month. Maybe not. It's currently the 28th. I have a couple of days left of September, and I'm going to try to cram a couple of things in. So I have 9 books to show you, as opposed to like 36, so this should be a little bit less frantic than last time. So starting off this TBR is actually the 2 books that I want to read this month. So they're going to carry over if I don't finish them, but hopefully I will be able to get these done in the next couple of days because I have started them and they are both pretty engaging. So the first one is The Ghost Tree by Christina Henry. I was sent a copy of this book this month. You'll see it in my upcoming book haul. It wasn't on my September TBR for that reason, but I really enjoy Christina Henry's books. I've only read 2 of them so far. I haven't read her Alice in Wonderland retellings, but I have read Lost Boy, which is Peter Pan, and I have read The Mermaid, which is kind of not really a Little Mermaid retelling. It's a P.T. Barnum / Fiji Mermaid thing. It's really fun. I really enjoyed both of those books. So this is not a retelling of hers, actually. This is just a straight up horror story, and I am very excited to keep going. I read about 50 pages of it last night, and I am fully on board for this. This looks like it's going to be amazing. So this book is set, I believe, in 1985. It's set in the 80s. Yeah, 1985. And we follow a girl named Lauren, and I believe she's about 15 years old, and she and her best friend Miranda are starting to kind of grow apart. Miranda is starting to become interested in things like painting her nails and boys, and Lauren still wants to play in the woods and kind of hold on to childhood a little bit. So we know that prior to this book starting, Lauren's father, who she was very close to, was murdered in the woods in kind of the area that she always frequents. And this has obviously been a big hardship for her and her family, and Lauren is really struggling with her relationship with her mother and her relationship with Miranda, and basically everything is changing. So pretty quickly we find out that 2 girls are murdered in a very vicious way, and Lauren will eventually start having visions of a horrible monster dragging bodies through the woods. This sounds amazing. This sounds really good so far. I have noticed in the first 50 pages or so that we do swap points of view. So we get Lauren, her mother, her kind of racist neighbor, and the wife of the Mexican family that has moved in across the street. So I think this is going to be a book that has tons and tons of shifting points of view. I think Lauren is probably the main one because she's the only one that gets talked about on the back here, but this sounds great so far. I'm really enjoying it, and I have confidence in Christina Henry's writing. I think that she is marvelous, and she writes really pacey books. The next book that I'm hoping to read in the month of September, but if not, I'll read it in October, is The Phlebotomist by Chris Panettiere. So this was on my September TBR, and I haven't quite gotten to finish it yet. I'm not very far. I've read 20 pages, but this world is super cool, and I have very high hopes for this book. So basically this takes place in a not so distant future. There was a huge war and there's a shortage of blood. So sort of because of this, society has started to separate into class due to blood type. So people who are, I believe O negative is the universal donor. They're at kind of the top of the hierarchy, while I think it's AB positive is at the very bottom because they are the universal receiver. They are a drain on resources. And we follow a character named Willa, who is someone who draws blood for the government and kind of has these quotas to meet, and is quite creepy and bleak. And she one day uncovers a bit of a secret, and I think that is going to have a huge knock-on effect for her life. I'm really enjoying this so far. I love the fact that Willa is an older woman. I think she's a grandmother, possibly. I need to dive back into this one, but she's an older character, and I always appreciate that. This sounds like it's going to be such a really cool concept, and I have high hopes for it. I know a couple of people who have read this and just absolutely loved it. So moving on to my next two books on my TBR, I am actually going to be buddy reading both of these with my friend Amber from Books of Amber. She's doing 4 buddy reads throughout the month of October. The Luminous Dead is the first one, and The Bone Houses is the last one. So if you're interested, she's tweeted about it a little bit. You can go ahead and follow her. I'll put her Twitter down below. You can go ahead and check that out. But starting with the first book that we're going to buddy read, Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling, is meant to be amazing. Absolutely amazing. It sounds so incredibly cool. I think it's kind of a sci-fi horror type book that maybe leans a little bit more towards sci-fi. So on the back here it says, a thrilling and atmospheric debut with the intensive drive of the Martian and gravity and the creeping dread of annihilation, in which a caver on a foreign planet finds herself in a terrifying psychological and emotional journey for survival. So basically our main character is this woman named Gear, and she lies her way onto this expedition. She thinks she's just going to be mapping mineral deposits and getting a fat paycheck. However, the expedition leader, whose name is M, discovers her secret, and M has no problem kind of asserting complete control over Gear. So apparently, as they're going on this kind of expedition, supplies begin to disappear, there are mounting inconsistencies, and lost and disoriented, Gear finds her sense of control giving way to paranoia and anger. This sounds amazing. It's reminding me a little bit maybe like a sci-fi version of Dark Matter by Michelle Paver, which is a marvelous book. That's a historical ghost story. It's in my Spooky Reads recommendation video, which I'll pop up above, but it sounds amazing. This sounds like it's gonna be such a good book. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to make me feel very claustrophobic. I don't like the idea of caves. I just think caves are a bad thing. So yeah, this is probably going to scare the crap out of me, and I'm really excited. And the second book that we're going to buddy read is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd-Jones. Every year I save up £1 per book that I read, and then I go ahead and splurge that cash on more books in the new year. So this is one of the ones that I bought for the beginning of 2020. I haven't picked it up yet, but now seemed like kind of the perfect time, and Amber was reading it as well, so clearly it is fate. So basically we follow a character who lives in this very remote village. She and her family are grave diggers, and her parents die, and she and her siblings have to kind of scrape out this meager existence. Now the problem with being a gravedigger in this particular town is the fact that the dead do not stay silent and restful. They rise, and they are called bone houses, and the result of a curse. So when a character named Ellis, who is a apprentice map maker, arrives in town, the bone houses begin to attack with a new ferocity. So this sounds really fun. This sounds like the perfect thing to read right now. The weather is just starting to change. It's sweater weather. Obviously, I'm wearing my jumpers, although I've been wearing my jumpers through the summer. Don't ask. This is going to be perfect to read right now. It's going to be the perfect thing for October, and I'm really looking forward to this. So moving on to some ARCs, I have a few advance copies that I am hoping to read this month. These were all sent to me by publishers. So the first one is A Witch in Time, which is a perfect pun title. I love it so much. And this is by Constance Sayers. So I was really interested in this book for a couple of reasons. So it is a historical fiction novel that covers 4 periods in time, 4 different lives, and it is one woman and a star-crossed love. So the first is 1895, where a 16-year-old Juliet begins a passionate and doomed romance with a married artist. In 1932, an aspiring actress escapes New York for the bright lights of Hollywood and a chance at love. In 1970, Californian musician Sandra's secret affair threatens to tear her band apart, and in 2012 Helen is starting to remember the vivid details of lives that did not belong to her. It sounds so good. I'm really looking forward to this one. I don't really know a huge amount about it, but it was one that popped up in kind of a "do you want to review these books" email, and it sounded amazing. I think, is this a debut? I'm just having a look to see if this is a debut or not. I'm not entirely sure, but there is a bit at the very back that says that her new novel for spring 2021 is The Ladies of the Secret Circus, which sounds amazing. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that if I enjoy this one. It looks really, really fun. Then I have a book that a lot of us are really excited for. This is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. She is, of course, the author of The 10,000 Doors of January, which was my second favorite book of the year last year. I really loved that so much, and I've had this forever. I actually received a copy of this, I think, in the early summer, maybe in May or June, and I just haven't found the time to read it as early as I wanted to, but this comes out in October, so now is kind of the time. So I want to go ahead and read this early. This is going to be one of the first books that I read this month, and I'm hopefully going to have a review for you guys coming up, so keep an eye out for that. This book is basically suffragettes and witches. It sounds great. So I think it's 1893, and women are fighting for the right to vote, and through these 3 sisters, the Eastwood sisters, they pursue the forgotten ways of magic to help them out. Sounds great. I'm really excited. She's one of those authors, I'm just gonna read everything that she writes. Next up, I have Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler. He is an author that I've heard lots and lots about, but I've never actually read any of his books. So his previous series, which is, I think it starts with the 100,000 names? The 1,000 names, I was off by a few zeros there, is The Shadow Campaign. So that looks like it's a 5-book series, and this is something new. It is the start of the Burning Blade and Silver Eye series. So this book follows a character named Gear, and he hasn't seen his beloved sister since their awful parents sold her to the Twilight Order 12 years ago. So now he's on kind of this quest for revenge. He bumps into his sister, and she is not who he remembers. She's this kind of warrior mage type for the Twilight Order. So these 2 siblings are standing on opposite sides of a looming civil war, and they learn that not even the ties of blood will keep them from splitting the world in 2. This sounds great. This sounds like it's going to be like in the vein of like good classic fantasy, but we have a woman in it, which is really exciting. I've heard really good things about his books, as I said. I'm really looking forward to giving his stuff a try, and this sounds like it's going to be really fun. So next is a book that I actually hauled this month, which you'll see in my upcoming book haul, and this is the start of a new trend that I am going to have with my monthly reading. So this is The Book of Dragons, edited by Jonathan Strahan. I picked this up in my Book Depository unboxing video, which at the time this goes up probably won't be on my channel, but I will link it on Book Depository's channel up above. You should definitely check it out. Check out some of the stuff they have on their channel. But I want to do more anthologies. I have this huge stack of anthologies. I'm going to do an anthologies on my TBR video at some point because I didn't realize how many I had. And I would really like to go ahead and read more of them. Basically, I read Exhalation by Ted Chiang earlier this year, and I can't shut up about it. It was so good, and I had never really given anthologies a try before. And while that is a single author anthology, this is multiple authors. I still think it's going to be a fabulous addition to my monthly reading. And the nice thing about anthologies, I have these all tabbed up. I separated out all of the stories, is I can read 1 or 2 a day, and it's not a huge rush like to the finish. It's something that I can just kind of like pick up and set down throughout the month. So I think that this is going to be really, really good. So basically, We have tons and tons of amazing authors who have contributed to this book. Just to name a few, I know R.F. Kuang is one of them, Kate Elliott, Garth Nix, Amal El-Motar, Shannon Maguire, Aliette de Bodard, Anne Leckie. Like, there's so many amazing authors who have contributed to this. So I think this is going to be a really, really good one. Ironically, I am not known for my love of dragons, but I feel like authors have become more and more interesting with dragons over the past decade or so. When I was younger, I felt like it was the same dragon over and over and over again, and that was really boring. But I feel like authors are becoming a little bit more fun and having more of a play with dragons in their stories. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be great. And finally, my reread. So this is the second book in the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. This is Words of Radiance. I haven't read this since the day it came out. I read it in about 8 hours. It's a pretty big book. I basically couldn't think for like a day afterwards. But that was a long time ago. I think this came out in 2012. No, it came out in 2014. Wow. Okay, so my memory's a little bit off. This came out in 2014, so I read this 6 years ago. It's been a little while. A few months ago, I read, oh my god, the first one, The Way of Kings. I reread that for the third time. This will be my second time reading this, and then I will move on to Oathbringer for the first time. And that will get me all caught up for Rhythm of War, which comes out in November. These are quite complicated and difficult to describe, also really heavy, so I'm going to put it down. But basically it takes place in a world in which these ferocious high storms just kind of absolutely batter the land, and we have this group of characters seemingly not connected whatsoever, and it turns out that they have a shared destiny. That's super vague, but that's the best that I can do. I bet that you have at least heard of these. If you have not, at least picked up the first one if you're a Brandon Sanderson fan. They're really good, they're really fabulous. I think that he's a marvelous author. There's not much more that can be said about Brandon Sanderson at this point, but what I have done is similar to the Book of Dragons. I've gone ahead and tabbed this, but I've tabbed it out in approximately 50-page chunks, getting to a new chapter, the start of a new chapter each time. So hopefully over the course of the month I'll be able to sort of slowly read this, but I think slowly is definitely the key word here. It's quite a big book. It is 1,080 pages. That's not too bad. So I don't know what I'm saying when I'm at the point where I'm saying a 1,080 page book is not too bad, but whatever. I think Oathbringer is even longer, and I think Rhythm of War is going to be even longer than that. I'm really excited. I'm really pumped. These are great. There's not much more to be said. So that is it for my October TBR. Fingers crossed I can get to all of these. I plan to probably read a couple of other things that are not on this list because that's just the way that I am. But fingers crossed for a really good reading month because we're in like perfect reading season right now, and I'm really, really looking forward to just settling down and quietly having a lot of really, really nice reading evenings. I would love to know what you are planning to read in the month of October, if you have read any of these books or if they are in your TBR. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.